Donald Trump hits Maine with a brutal smackdown after the state refuses to ban men from competing in women's sports. Now, I thought this issue was settled and put behind us, and common sense prevailed in November. And as a society, we decided, no, we don't want boys beating up on little girls and taking their opportunities. But yet, Democrats, in perfect self destructive nature, have decided to take an extremely unpopular position, and now the Trump administration is hitting back hard. I wanted to let you guys know that later this week, I will be going on the Hodge Twins podcast. This is an awesome opportunity that I could not have gotten without your guys' constant support, liking the videos, sharing them, being an engaged community. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means a ton to me. So Wednesday and Thursday, I probably won't be posting a video, but I will be recording behind the scenes content with the Hodge Twins and my trip to Las Vegas, and I'll release it here for you guys to see. But make sure you follow me on X so I can tweet out the link of the podcast when it goes live. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but let's start with a quick refresher of Donald Trump and the governor of Maine getting into it over this exact issue at the governor's dinner at the White House.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way, that's good, but I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
So yeah, the governor of Maine is trying to go toe-to-toe with the president of the United States over a radical anti-woman ideology that the vast majority of the country rejected. But because Democrats abandoned being the party of the working class and replaced that with being the party of the marginalized, they can't distance themselves from this issue without risking isolating their extremely radical base. So you get people like the Maine governor who are so disillusioned by their own ideology and so committed to opposing anything that Donald Trump does that they've convinced themselves they have the moral high ground by defending a man's right to play in women's sports, to undress in women's locker rooms, to house criminal men in women's prisons. Well, that exchange was a month or two ago, and just the other day, the Attorney General of Maine sent a letter to the Trump administration stating they will continue to allow men to compete in women's sports. The letter reads, "The Maine Department of Education and the Maine Office of the Attorney General have reviewed the draft resolution agreement and your impasse letter. We will not sign the resolution agreement and we do not have revisions to counterpropose. We agree that we are at an impasse. Nothing in Title IX or its implementing regulations prohibits schools from allowing transgender girls and women, boys and men, to participate on girls and women's sports teams. Your letters do not cite a single case that holds so. To the contrary, various federal courts have held that Title IX and or the Equal Protection Clause requires schools to allow such participation." So the problem really stems from this. In 2021, the Biden administration opened Title IX, which is protections for women and women's spaces, to be expanded to include anyone who identifies as a woman, not just biological women. And this is a completely novel interpretation of what Title IX is supposed to be for. I mean, I find it so incredibly ironic. Like, it's a twist so surprising, I could not have seen it coming. That the Democrat Party, the party that fought for these rights for women, who believed that women deserved equal and fair chances, equal opportunities, their own programs and spaces, are now the ones arguing in favor of mentally ill men having the right to invade all these spaces. That the historic rights that women fought so hard to achieve are now completely irrelevant because some weird guy wants to put on a dress and demands that the rest of the world see him as a girl and engage in the delusion so aggressively that the exclusive privileges and spaces granted to women must be disbanded. I mean, their argument is so insultingly idiotic. Like, they'll concede that there are two different sexes, but then say, oh, there's like a million genders. And genders are fluid. You can pick one any given day. Obviously, that's a complete lie. But even if it was true, the separation of sports and private spaces are based on the biological and the sexual differences between men and women, not based on some societal construct of gender roles and how you feel and how you present to the world. There are men and women's sports because men are taller, faster, and stronger, not because society has arbitrarily said that men should work and women should stay home with the kids. But nonetheless, that leads to this coming out yesterday that the Department of Education begins the process of terminating Maine's federal K-12 funding as the state allows trans athletes on female teams. Because they don't get it. We're not allowing the abuse of women and girls at the expense of a few mentally ill boys who are so arrogant and self-obsessed that they believe all of society must abandon reality to adhere to their delusion. Just think of like the absolute narcissism involved. Now, after this came out, MSNBC brought on a trans expert to explain how actually the science is overwhelmingly conclusive that men can become women. Watch.
Charlotte, you and I have talked about this offline. I mean, the Republicans love to fearmonger. That's their currency. It galvanizes people to vote based on fear, not on facts. I always like to say, don't vote on feelings, vote on facts. Ground our viewers right now on why making trans people the boogeyman is just something that the Republicans want to do right now. And to your point, they're going to move on from that, and they're going to make another group targeted, and the next round of fear-mongering continues.
Hold on, I have to stop it there. Did that seem like an objective reporter asking an objective question? She was just like, here's the narrative I want to push. Now push it for me. And then also the complete lack of self-awareness required to say that Republicans are the ones who fearmonger. You mean Democrats who call Trump Hitler, who say Trump is a threat to democracy, who say Elon Musk is a Nazi, stealing your social security, cutting Medicaid to grandma, Trump's an agent of Putin? I mean, a typical case of Democrat projection being Democrat confession. But let's get back into this clip.
That gets right to the heart of it. So there are two things. First of all, according to polling, most Americans believe they don't personally know a trans person, which makes it a lot easier to be bystanders when the trans community is attacked. The second thing, of course, is that only one party is really talking about trans issues. It's the Republican Party. They've made trans issues one of their central topics in campaigning and the national discourse, what have you. The more the Democrats ignore this, the more it's going to come back to haunt us in future elections. Republicans are not going to let up on this. They're not going to leave it alone. They're not going to stop this, and we're going to suffer. And here's what I find ironic about all this. It's very easy to fight back on trans issues. The science is on our side. Every credible medical organization has come out and endorsed gender-affirming care and said that the trans military ban is ridiculous and unnecessary. They've said that trans women should be housed in women's prisons. I mean, these are all policies that make sense if you're willing to fight back. But the more we don't fight back, the more Republicans are going to engage in bad faith and run up a score on Democrats. And I think we all deserve better.
I mean, Democrats, please, please, please continue with making the transgender problem your number one priority. Please make this the center of your platform for as long as you possibly can. This is the most unpopular, unwinnable position the Democrats have, and they have a lot of unpopular, unwinnable positions. I mean, you want to talk about deteriorating people's faith in the science and the medical community? Keep trying to explain to people why the experts say that men can actually become women. I'm sure it's going to bode well for you. Even though every single piece of evidence that there is, from Europe to America, all proves this stuff is catastrophic and harmful. Europe banned your so-called gender-affirming care for minors because the results were disastrous. The people arguing in favor of men competing in women's sports to the Supreme Court right now had to openly admit to the Supreme Court that people who transition genders are actually more suicidal. They don't get better. It's bad for their brains, bad for their bones, bad for their joints, bad for their organs. The surgery comes with a laundry list of complications. You're a lifelong dependent on medication. So yeah, of course, those people shouldn't be allowed to serve in the military. They don't even let you in the military if you're asthmatic. So why would they let a mentally deranged person who has destroyed their body, requires a cocktail of medicine, to serve in the army? How does that increase our lethality? And one of the most cruel positions they have to be taking is forcing women to be imprisoned with biological men who claim they're women. This report from the New York Times says there are about 1,500 federal prisoners who are transgender women, according to the Bureau of Prisons, but they represent an outsized portion of federal inmates, especially among female prisoners. 15% of women in prison are transgender. There are 750 transgender men out of about 144,000 male inmates. So 15% of all women in prison are actually men pretending to be women. Now, the stats behind this are even crazier. Most women in prison have experienced domestic violence or sexual violence. And so you're forcing traumatized women to be locked in a cage with a mentally ill man, a criminal mentally ill man at that. And this is the party that claims to care about women. Give me a break. You have to be a different kind of evil and awful person to think that this is good, compassionate policy for anybody involved. But that's why the Democrats are more unpopular than ever, because they refuse to listen to the American people and instead want to enforce a perverse and creepy worldview that they've decided is what the American people ought to believe in. And they refuse to hear anything contrary to that. Watch this next clip that's also from Maine, where a father is speaking out against boys being able to compete in girls' sports, and the school board literally silences him. This is the most fascist, authoritarian thing I have ever seen. Watch.
Good job, and thank you to the 6 members that voted to go back to the 2020 interpretation of Title IX. And shame on the 1 board member that voted no.
I'm sorry,
Maine
but
girls are
negative
watching.
comments will not be allowed.
Most of you have heard by now that I have started a petition that Augusta concerned parents, both Republican and Democrat, are signing. This petition is asking if you, the school board members, will put up a vote to have Miss Kim.
I'm sorry, that's not going to be tolerated.
She's also a public.
Nope, I'm sorry, it will not be tolerated. Once more, and you're off the podium.
So, as most of you know, someone is the president of the Maine Principal Association.
Nope, close enough. I'm sorry. You're done, Mr. Blanchard. You're done, Mr. Blanchard.
What? How is
Done, Mr. Blanchard.
Wow. Communist China right here.
So how crazy is that? The first thing she said was no negative comments allowed. So you're allowed to praise the radical ideology that we push, but you're not allowed to criticize it. No negative comments. It's once again showing the true colors of the Democrats. They're not for democracy. They're not for freedom of speech. They're not for opposing ideas. They want a one-party, one-ideology system that is not based in fact or truth or reality. And if you even think about disagreeing with them for a second, they will silence you, they will cancel you, they will try to take your child away if you don't affirm this delusion. It's radical and it's authoritarian. But because they think they're standing up for some sort of human rights issue, some sort of abuse to a marginalized community, they've convinced themselves that they're doing a good thing, standing up for people. And so any opposition must be rooted in hate and bigotry, and therefore don't have to extend the opportunity for discourse to someone that they perceive to be evil, even though they're the ones who are encouraging kids to chemically castrate and mutilate themselves. It's just absolutely wild, and I hope that Trump goes even further with this, because we will no longer allow Democrats to abuse our women and girls. Now, the last thing I want to show you is just one last piece of evidence that the Democrats are in fact the ones who engage in fear-mongering as their only strategy, even though their outrage and speculation is backed by no proof or evidence. Here is Meet the Press calling out Cory Booker, asking him if there's any evidence that there was insider trading by the Trump administration related to the stock market tariff stuff last week.
Do you believe that Democrats have any real evidence that anyone in the administration profited
off of the president's policies and announcements, or is this just a fishing expedition?
You know, here's the problem with Donald Trump and congressional Republicans is our whole system was designed to have checks and balances. Now, Trump has designed an administration like none we've ever seen before. He is attacking the very agencies that are supposed to have independent oversight of these kind of actions. So we see him hiring people based upon their loyalty, not based upon their expertise. The real group that should be holding investigations and accountability and even just oversight is Congress.
But is there any evidence, Senator? Do you think there's any evidence that anyone profited off of these tariffs?
There is enough of an offense here. There's enough smoke here that should demand congressional hearings.
So again, no, they have no evidence, just like they have no evidence for any of their outrageous claims. Their only goal is to try to incite panic and outrage. But outside of the radical base that still supports the Democrat Party, all of the noise is falling on deaf ears. They've lost all credibility. They've lost all trust with the public. They said there was all this massive manipulation and insider trading going on inside the Trump administration, and there's no actual proof that that was the case, and even Cory Booker admitted it. Yeah, there's no proof, but you know, there's enough smoke there that we should investigate it. The reason that the Democrat rhetoric is explicitly anti-Trump is because their actual core principles and policies haven't changed. It's still support for radical DEI and gender theory nonsense. And they know that the American people don't like it. They've outright rejected it. So their goal is to try somehow to make Trump seem worse, to make him more unpopular than their extremely unpopular positions. They want to try to convince people that Elon is so bad that he's robbing the government, that he's gutting it with the chainsaw and everything is going to fail tomorrow. So hopefully by doing that, people will then support big bloated government and they'll see it as essential and necessary. They're a lost party, they're a failed party, and examples like what's happening in Maine show you exactly why. These people just will never get it. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.